All right, so you're thinking about selling your house, but you're terrified to buy a house in 2022. There is definitely reason for you to be trepidatious. This is Brian Mayer with the Mayer Group at eXp Realty, and today we're going to talk about the ups and the downs of trying to buy a house when you have one to sell. Let's get into it right now. All right, so everybody is now faced with this dilemma who has a house to sell and they want to then turn around and buy one at the same time, and it is driving people crazy. And the downside to this is you're either going to go crazy, you're going to end up paying too much, you're going to end up in the wrong house, or you could even end up homeless. So let's first talk about why this issue even exists. As you're well aware, we're in the middle of a very strong seller's market, meaning the sellers have the upper hand in the negotiation. The buyers are at a huge disadvantage on the very attractive, desirable houses, which obviously are the ones we all want. So the thing is, when you have multiple people competing on a house, if you are a person who is contingent, meaning you have a house to sell first, your risk to that seller then elevates. Now, these sellers in many cases also then have to go buy a house. They might be in a similar situation. And if they not only have to sell their house, but the person buying their house has to also sell their house, this chain becomes ridiculous. Now, in a buyer's market, that's a totally fine thing to do. Often you're the only one competing against your seller or yourself when you're negotiating with somebody, and you have the upper hand to be able to make all these moves. But in this particular situation, you're at a huge disadvantage. So I'm going to tell you the techniques that I recommend that people do when it comes time to face this situation in order of in order of most desirable down to the least desirable. And I would say that you have to be very strategic and plan things out. Last year, I sold a house to a person. I represented the seller, and the person buying the house was writing their 17th contract, living in a hotel. Trust me when I tell you, this process can go very wrong for many people, and it is important to make sure you get this right without, again, going crazy. All right, so if you have a lot of equity in your house and you're confident that your house is going to sell, the easiest way to do this is to go non-contingent without selling your house by using something called a bridge loan. Now, I'm not a lender. I don't play one on TV. You have to consult your financial advisor on how all this works. But the essential way that this works is you'll finance both of them together, in many cases with an interest-only loan. You are able to then go non-contingent when you purchase, meaning you don't have a house to sell. You're free to go to settlement as soon as you can close the loan. And then in the meantime, you sell your house. Once your house is sold, you normally convert that over into a 30-year fixed mortgage. Downside to that situation is if, God forbid, your house doesn't sell for some reason, and now you're stuck with both of these houses you're paying the mortgage on an interest-only loan. Generally, it has some sort of stipulation that you have 12 months to pull this off for some amount of time, in which case it turns into a balloon. Things can get crazy. You know, that risk is there, but if you're working with a competent real estate agent and you're very, in that situation, you're going to have a lot of equity in your house. You have room to move the numbers around. If your house doesn't sell, you might have to lower it or fix it up, in which case, it'll probably sell. So if you're in a buyer's market, you're worried about your house selling, that can be a scary situation. But in this market, if you can't sell your house, there's probably something wrong. So that's the easiest thing to do. The next recommendation, or the next easiest thing that you can do, is because you have the upper hand when it comes time to selling your house, you can put a contingency, a clause in your accepting of your buyer's offer on your house that says you have a certain amount of time to find a home of your choice. And at the end of that period of time, if you have not found your home of choice, you can cancel the contract, no penalty to you. You don't have to sell your house, or you can re-enter into another, extension of that contract, giving yourself another 30 days or whatever it is, assuming the buyer wants to stay in there and do that. The next in line would be to do something called a post-occupancy agreement. So in that situation, you put your house under contract, you go to settlement, and then you live in the house for a period of time. So let's just say we agree to a 60-day or a 90-day post-settlement occupancy agreement. What you're going to want to do is try to hurry up and get the buyers to go to settlement as soon as possible. Immediately start looking for houses, and then, try to put one under contract with a contingency on your home sale, and maybe even you can line it up so you don't even have to post occupy, or you go to settlement, you get your money, you become completely free and clear, non-contingent, and now you have 30, 60, or 90 days to find a house and move out. The risk there is at the end of this period of time, if you haven't found somewhere to go, you have to get out of your house and find somewhere else to live. All right, so the third option would be, and this is what most people try to do, would be to try to buy a house while your house is under contract. Like, you accept a house with a 45-day contract maybe, or you push that contract out to maybe 60 days, and then you try to hurry up and go to settlement in the meantime with some sort of a backup plan, being a short-term rental, extended stay America, or maybe you stay with relatives. In that particular situation, you're going to be contingent on your home sale, but it's one thing to be contingent on your home selling when you're trying to buy a house and your house isn't even on the market, or maybe your house is on the market or your house is under contract. And then the fourth level would be your house is under contract, your inspections on your house are already done, the terms have been agreed to, the appraisal has already been done, that has been cleared, and then the higher even level is the buyers have already cleared their financing, and the only thing you're waiting on is settlement. So if you did like a 60-day settlement, theoretically you could hurry everybody up, and 3 weeks in you could be essentially contingent on your home selling, but the financing commitment is already done. The only thing you're waiting on is settlement. If somebody wanted to put an offer in on one of my listings, you have to just imagine this becomes a risk assessment. The less risk involved, the easier it is to accept that offer. So if you came to me, there's 5 competing offers, and somebody went, maybe 5,000 over or 10,000 over, and then they had this home sale contingency, but they were at the loan commitment level, I would tell my clients, let me call the lender and just ask some clarifying questions, but I think, take the money. The percentage of this failing at this point is probably less than 2%. So just to kind of throw a number out there, altogether, it hovers around 5 to 7% of all contracts. All houses that go under contract fall out of contract at some point. Without making this too long, let me just give you my advice on the best way to go about doing this. The first thing that you want to do is you want to try to get a very clear picture of what all of your numbers are. You need to talk to the lender. You need to make sure the real estate agent you're working with is very confident about what your house is going to sell for. So now you have numbers to work with. So once you have all your numbers figured out, you will have a clear picture of what you can and can't do, and that will increase your comfort level with this process. The next thing you need to do is, before you even get started, I recommend you get out there and start looking at houses and be comfortable with the market. What I do for all my clients is I send them a list of houses that have already sold. And what they can do is take that list and become very clear on whether or not there's a likelihood of something that's attractive coming on the market. So as an example, if I send them 3 months worth of listings, and in that 3-month time frame, there was 30 houses that they would have purchased in that 3-month period, I would say, guys, you're definitely in a good position. If you looked at the list and said, in the past 90 days, there is not a single house that I even remotely like, I would tell you, pump the brakes. We have a problem. We need to sort this out. You are going to be very restricted in what you're going to be able to do on the buy side. God forbid you try to put your house under contract and then go find a house before your house sells. You're going to end up in a very bad situation. So you need to get your financing straight. You need to go start looking at houses, look at past sales, become familiar with the market, and then put your plans in place. I always sit down with my clients when I'm doing a listing, and I say, okay, plan A, here's how this works, and then here's the time frame. Okay, if that doesn't work because of this and this, let's move to plan B. So plan B starts if plan A fails because of this, and then plan B, we go this, this, and this for this amount of time under these circumstances, and if that doesn't work, we move to plan C. I think for many people, the stress of this situation can be overwhelming, and having a plan in place can alleviate a lot of that stress and give you a sense of you're worried you're going to fail at this to like, okay, now I know we can win, and now I know that I'm going to be okay. Because I think that most people are super excited about all the money they're going to make on their house until they realize that the house they buy is going to be equally as expensive. But I think the bigger concern for people is that they're either A, going to put themselves in a very bad situation somehow, becoming homeless, or that they're going to end up in the wrong house. I mean, there's plenty of people that I meet with that say, we were in a tough situation. We only had 2 weeks to find a house. This was all that was on the market. We wish we never bought this house, but here we are. So next time we're not going to do it. I'm going to circle back, and I'm just going to go over the last option that I didn't even bring up here. And that is if you have somewhere else to go, if you have family that you can live with, or I mentioned before, extended stay America, short-term rentals are very expensive, and people look at it like, oh, I wouldn't want to pay $3,000 or $4,000 or $5,000 a month to stay somewhere. That's crazy. You got to look at the big picture here. Let's say you pay $5,000 to stay somewhere versus you end up in the wrong house. That's definitely not what you want to do. And again, keeping in mind, you're probably selling your house at some kind of a crazy premium. You're making an extra $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 more than you were in a regular market. Don't be greedy with that money, and don't become very scarcity minded where you're just worried about losing money all the time. Keep the goal in mind. The goal is to get the right house, to make sure that you don't screw that up on the buy side, because when this is all over, you're going to have some money in your pocket and you're going to be living in a house. And what you don't want to be doing is having to live in the wrong house or losing a bunch of money because you made some poor decisions. All right, guys, I hope you found this helpful and informative. If you wouldn't mind, please subscribe to my channel. Click the notification bell if you want to receive notifications. I talk about the DC metro area, the housing market, what the trends are, things like how the Ukraine war is going to affect the housing market, how this inflation is going to affect the housing market. I bring on special guests sometimes and talk about things that are relevant to the housing market, which everybody does have some interest in, because we all are, for the most part, have tied up our largest financial investment in our houses. So this information is important. And if there's a topic that you want to know about, if there's something that's burning up, of course you can call me or text me. But if you have, something you would like me to cover in a video, I would love to do it for you. All right, guys, I hope you have a fantastic day.